I'm Dr. Thomas Richard, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Here, I share trusted, easy to understand medical information to help you make informed decisions about your health. Before we begin, if you find these videos helpful, please subscribe to my channel, press the bell icon, and like and share this video so you never miss future health tips. This is a kind of tiredness that scares people after 60 because it does not feel normal. It is not the kind that comes after gardening or walking or cleaning the kitchen. It is the kind that makes you sit down halfway through getting dressed. The kind that makes you wonder why climbing a few steps suddenly feels like a mountain. And if you started Amlodipine or Metoprolol not long before that fatigue began, you may have already asked yourself the question that keeps so many older adults awake at night. Is this my heart getting weaker? Is this just aging? Or is one of these pills quietly draining my energy every single day? What makes this so dangerous is that many people never get the right answer. They blame their age. Their family blames retirement. Sometimes even their doctor, at first glance, blames getting older. Meanwhile, the real cause is sitting there in the pill organizer, taken faithfully every morning, doing exactly what it was prescribed to do, but also doing something else the body after 70 may not tolerate very well. And by the end of this video, you're going to know how to tell the difference between fatigue that points more toward metoprolol, fatigue that points more toward amlodipine, and the warning sign that means this may be more serious than medication side effects. If you want clear, life-saving health guidance for older adults, please subscribe today and stay with this channel for protection. Now, here is the part that surprises almost everyone. Both of these medications can cause fatigue. Both of them can make you feel weaker, slower, a little unsteady, a little washed out. But they usually do it in very different ways. And if you don't understand those differences, you can spend months treating the wrong problem. You can lower a dose that was helping you. You can keep taking a dose that is exhausting you. Or worse, you can ignore fatigue that is actually your body's early signal that your blood pressure, your pulse, or your heart's workload has changed more than you realize. So stay with me, because the answer is not as simple as one is bad and one is good. Let me start with Harold, 72, from Arizona. Harold had been active all his life, not a marathon runner, nothing dramatic, but he moved. He walked every morning, carried his groceries, played with his grandkids, fixed things around the house. Then after an episode of fast heartbeat, he was started on metoprolol. Within 10 days, he told his daughter something she had never heard him say before. "I feel like someone turned the power down inside me." Not pain, not dizziness exactly. Just a heavy, dim, low battery feeling from the moment he woke up. He could still function, but everything took more effort. His morning walk became shorter. Stairs became a negotiation. Even conversation felt like it required more energy than it should. That pattern matters, because metoprolol works by slowing the heart rate and reducing how hard the heart pumps. That is often exactly why doctors choose it. It can help with high blood pressure, chest pain, certain rhythm problems, and after a heart attack. But when the heart rate is slower and the body's adrenaline response is muted, some people, especially older adults, describe it as feeling like their internal engine is idling too low. They are not necessarily sleepy. They are not always weak in the muscles. They just don't have the same drive, the same reserve, the same ability to speed up when life asks more from them. That kind of fatigue points more strongly toward metoprolol than amlodipine. But then there is Gloria, 76, from Georgia, and her story points in a very different direction. Gloria was started on amlodipine for blood pressure. Her numbers improved beautifully. On paper, everything looked better. But 3 weeks later, she noticed her ankles looked fuller by afternoon. Then her shoes felt tighter. Then her legs began to feel heavy. Not painful exactly, just weighted down. By evening, she was more tired than usual, and she thought, maybe my pressure is too low. But when she checked it, it was fine. What she was feeling was not the same low-energy, slowed-down fatigue Harold had on metoprolol. Her tiredness was coming with swelling, heaviness, and that puffy, waterlogged sensation so many people dismiss at first. That is because amlodipine works differently. It is a calcium channel blocker. Its job is to relax and widen blood vessels so blood can move more easily. It usually does not slow the heart the same way metoprolol does. That is a huge clue. When amlodipine causes fatigue, it is often indirect. Maybe the blood pressure drops a little too much in a sensitive person. Maybe dizziness makes you less active and inactivity makes you feel weak. Maybe swelling in the feet and lower legs makes every movement feel harder than it should. So yes, amlodipine can absolutely be part of the fatigue story, but the texture of that fatigue is often different if you know what to listen for. So let me give you clue number 7, because this is one of the fastest ways to narrow it down. Check what your pulse is doing when the fatigue shows up. If your tiredness comes with a noticeably slower heartbeat, especially if your resting pulse has drifted into the 50s or even lower, metoprolol moves much higher on the suspect list. Amlodipine usually doesn't produce that classic slow pulse, low engine pattern the way a beta blocker can, and I need to be careful here. A pulse in the 50s is not automatically dangerous in every person. Some people tolerate it just fine, but if your pulse is slower than usual for you, and at the same time you feel worn out, foggy, or a little lightheaded, that combination deserves attention. Let me tell you about Louise, 79, from Missouri. Louise started writing down her blood pressure because she thought her medicine was making her weak. What she did not write down at first was her pulse. Then one afternoon, her grandson, who is a paramedic, looked at her machine and said, "Grandma, why is your heart rate 52?" That was the missing piece. Louise had been blaming age, weather, sleep, and stress, but the pattern was there the whole time. On the days she felt most drained, her heart rate was noticeably lower. Her blood pressure wasn't alarmingly low. It was the heart rate and the body's reduced ability to respond to activity that explained why carrying laundry suddenly felt like work she couldn't finish. Now, that does not mean every person on metoprolol with a normal pulse is in the clear. Some people feel fatigue from beta blockers even when the heart rate is not dramatically low. Why? Because metoprolol doesn't just affect the number of beats per minute, it affects how forcefully the heart responds to stress, movement, stares, emotion, and exercise. The American Heart Association explains that beta blockers slow the heartbeat and reduce the force of contraction, which is exactly why some people feel unusually limited during activity. So if you keep telling yourself, "I'm okay sitting down, but the second I do anything, I feel wiped out," that pattern still points more toward metoprolol than amlodipine. Now let's go to clue number 6, and this one pulls us back toward amlodipine. Look at your ankles, your feet, and even your lower legs by late afternoon or evening. If the fatigue comes with swelling, sock marks, tighter shoes, or that strange sensation that your legs are heavier than they used to be, amlodipine becomes much more suspicious. This is not a minor detail. Swelling is one of the best-known side effects of amlodipine, and it becomes more common as the dose goes up. People often assume swelling is just cosmetic. It is not. It changes how your legs feel, how long you want to stand, and how much energy simple movement requires. In older adults, that added heaviness can absolutely translate into fatigue. I remember a woman named Bernice, 74, from South Carolina, who kept saying, "I don't think I'm tired. I think I'm dragging." That was her word, dragging, and it was perfect. She was not sleepy on the couch in the morning. She was not nodding off after breakfast. By noon, though, her legs felt dense and her body felt less willing. She had started amlodipine a month earlier. Her blood pressure looked better. Her family assumed everything was fine. But by evening, her feet were puffy, her sandals felt tight, and her energy had disappeared. That is a very different story from the metoprolol patient whose heart rate is slowed and whose energy seems turned down from the inside. Bernice's fatigue was mechanical, vascular, and progressive through the day. Clue number 5 is about when the fatigue hits. Timing matters more than people realize. Metoprolol fatigue often shows up as a steady, broad, all-day reduction in energy, especially after the medication is built up over several days. People describe feeling flatter, slower, less responsive. Amlodipine fatigue can be more variable. Some people notice it more after standing, after heat exposure, after a shower, after being on their feet, or later in the day when swelling is worse. Neither pattern is absolute, but if you pay attention to timing, the body often tells you which medication story it is trying to tell. The problem is most people never track it closely enough to see the pattern. That was exactly what happened to Walter, 81, from Florida. Walter kept saying his bad hour was after breakfast. Every day around mid-morning, he felt a little off. Not sick, not chest pain, just limp, weak, and strangely uninspired to move. His daughter thought it was low blood sugar. His neighbor thought he was dehydrated. But when they matched the timing to his medications, there it was. Metoprolol with breakfast. Then that washed out feeling not long after. Later, when his doctor adjusted the plan, that specific mid-morning slump changed. Timing did not prove the answer by itself, but it exposed the pattern. And patterns are everything when you are trying to figure out whether a blood pressure medication is quietly stealing your energy. Clue number 4 is one many people miss because they think fatigue should mean only sleepiness. No, there are different flavors of fatigue. Metoprolol fatigue often comes with exercise intolerance. That means you can still do the activity, but your body feels unusually limited by it. Your heart doesn't seem to rise to meet the moment. You walk and feel done sooner. You bend and straighten up and feel winded sooner. You climb stairs and need a pause you didn't need before. Amlodipine fatigue, on the other hand, may come with dizziness when you stand, a mild headache, flushing, or swollen feet. So ask yourself this: is my fatigue more like I can't get going, or more like I feel drained when I'm upright and moving around? Let me tell you about Esther, 70, from Ohio. Esther was convinced her new fatigue was depression because she had lost interest in her walks. But when we looked closer, it wasn't loss of interest, it was loss of capacity. She still wanted to walk. She just could not tolerate the same pace without feeling spent. That is a very different thing. She was on metoprolol. Her sleep was fine. Her mood, after a deeper conversation, was not truly depressed. Her body just felt throttled back. And that distinction matters because many older adults are told fatigue is emotional when it is actually physiological. The body is not always sad. Sometimes it is simply slowed. And when that slowing appears soon after starting or increasing metoprolol, you have to respect that clue. Now, I want to be very clear about something because this next part prevents a lot of confusion. Metoprolol does not mean bad medication. Amlodipine does not mean good medication. That is not how this works. The right medicine depends on why it was prescribed in the first place. If someone has atrial fibrillation, angina, a prior heart attack, or certain heart failure situations, metoprolol may be doing something extremely important, even if it is contributing to fatigue. And amlodipine may be perfect for one person and miserable for another. So the real question is not which pill is better. The real question is which pill matches my body, my age, my heart, and my symptoms, without taking more energy than it gives back. Clue number 3 is colder hands and feet. This one points more toward metoprolol. Beta blockers can reduce circulation to the extremities in some people, and that is why cold fingers or cold toes often travel with that slowed, low-energy feeling. If you have fatigue plus chilly hands, reduced exercise tolerance, and a lower pulse, metoprolol climbs even higher on the list. Amlodipine is not the classic medicine for that pattern. In fact, because it relaxes blood vessels, the emotional story of amlodipine is usually not cold and slowed. It is more often puffy, dizzy, flushed, or heavy. Again, not always. Bodies do not read textbooks, but if you want practical clues, this one helps more than most people realize. Then there is clue number 2, and this one is sneaky: sleep changes. For years, people blamed beta blockers for all kinds of mood problems, including depression. More recent evidence has been more nuanced than that. The American Heart Association highlighted research suggesting beta blockers were not more likely to cause depression than other treatments, but they may contribute to sleep disturbances in some patients, including insomnia or unusual dreams. And among the mental health type complaints that led people to stop beta blockers, fatigue or tiredness was a very common reason. So if you started metoprolol and then not only felt tired during the day, but also noticed odd dreams, poorer sleep, or waking unrefreshed, that combination may matter more than you think. I think of Raymond, 77, from Nevada. Raymond kept saying, "I sleep all night, but I wake up feeling like I worked the night shift." That sentence tells you a lot. He was not only tired, he was unrestored. That matters, because sometimes the fatigue blamed on age is actually the combined effect of a medication slowing the system plus sleep quality changing quietly in the background. He didn't come in saying, my medicine is the problem." He came in saying, "I'm old and maybe this is just what happens now." And that is the sentence I want you to be very careful with. Maybe this is just aging. No, not until you have ruled out medication effects, because too many people surrender to symptoms that are actually modifiable. And now we reach clue number one, the most revealing question of all. What else came with the fatigue? If your answer is slow pulse, reduced stamina, cold hands or feet, feeling flattened during activity, and a sense that your internal motor is running too low, metoprolol is more likely the culprit. If your answer is ankle swelling, heavier legs, dizziness when standing, flushing, or feeling worse in heat or after being upright, amlodipine is more likely the one contributing. That does not make this a perfect home diagnosis, but it changes everything because now you are not walking into a doctor's office saying, "I'm just tired." You are walking in saying, "I'm tired, and here is the pattern." That is actionable. But before you decide you have the answer, I need to show you the trap that catches people over and over after age 70. Sometimes it is not amlodipine versus metoprolol. Sometimes it is amlodipine and metoprolol together, or metoprolol plus a diuretic, or amlodipine plus dehydration, or metoprolol plus an illness that already lowers energy. Older bodies do not process stressors one at a time, they stack. A medication that was tolerable at 62 may feel completely different at 78. A dose that seemed fine in winter may suddenly feel too strong in a hot summer. A heart rate that was acceptable when you were sedentary may become limiting once you try to be more active again. That is why context matters just as much as the name on the bottle. Let me tell you about Irene, 83, from Tennessee, because her story brings all of this into focus. Irene was taking amlodipine, metoprolol, and a water pill. Her blood pressure looked excellent. Her doctor was pleased. Her family was reassured. But Irene herself felt awful. She said she had no strength, no stamina, and no interest in leaving the house. Everyone assumed the combination was simply necessary because the numbers were good. But numbers are only part of the story. Her pulse was low. Her ankles were puffy. She had been drinking less water because she didn't want to use the bathroom often. So what was causing the fatigue? One medicine? Two? Dehydration? All of the above? The answer, was that her body was overwhelmed by the combined effect, not by a single villain acting alone. This is why you should never make medication decisions based on guesswork alone. You need pattern recognition, but you also need safety. Especially with metoprolol, and this is critical, do not stop it suddenly on your own. I need you to hear that. Sudden withdrawal from a beta blocker can be dangerous. It can worsen chest pain. It can trigger rebound fast heart rate. In some people, it can lead to very serious heart problems. That is not drama. That is standard medical caution. So if you watch this video and think, "It's the metoprolol, I knew it," do not march into the kitchen tonight and throw it away. That is exactly how people turn a manageable problem into an emergency. Never let frustration make that decision for you. And do not get casual with amlodipine either. People sometimes think, well, it's just a blood pressure pill that relaxes vessels so I can stop and see what happens. No, that is not wise. Blood pressure can rise again. Chest pain can worsen in some people. Medication changes should be made with a clinician who knows why you were put on it, what your numbers have been, what your heart rate has been doing, and what other conditions you are carrying. The older you are, the more this matters, because medication decisions after 70 are rarely about one symptom in isolation. They are about the balance between protection and burden, benefit and side effects, control and quality of life. That balance deserves thought, not impulse. So what should you do if you suspect one of these medications is causing fatigue? Let me give you the practical protocol, because without a protocol, people just worry. First, start a simple log for 1 week. Write down the time you take the medicine, your blood pressure, your pulse, when the fatigue begins, whether you have swelling, whether you feel dizzy standing up, and whether exertion makes the tiredness sharply worse. That 1 week of honest observation is more valuable than 3 months of vague memory. Do not rely on phrases like sometimes or pretty often. They are useless. Patterns live in details, and details are what allow a doctor to see whether this looks like metoprolol fatigue, amlodipine fatigue, overmedication, dehydration, or something else entirely. Second, look for the supporting clues, not just the tiredness. This is where so many people go wrong. They focus on one symptom and miss the cluster. Metoprolol fatigue rarely travels alone. It may bring slower pulse, reduced exercise tolerance, cold extremities, or that power turned down feeling. Amlodipine fatigue may bring swollen ankles, flushing, dizziness, lightheadedness in heat, or legs that feel heavier as the day goes on. Clusters are more trustworthy than isolated symptoms. If you only notice tiredness, the answer remains blurry. If you notice tiredness plus a body pattern, the picture sharpens. That's when a medication conversation becomes precise instead of emotional. Third, rule out the imposters, because not every tired older adult on blood pressure medicine is tired because of blood pressure medicine. This is important. Anemia can do it. Thyroid disease can do it. A new rhythm problem can do it. Worsening heart failure can do it. Poor sleep can do it. Sleep apnea can do it. Infection can do it. Depression can do it. Low blood sugar can do it. Dehydration can do it. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is because many people latch onto the medication explanation because it feels concrete and controllable. Sometimes they are right, sometimes they are not. If the fatigue is new, significant, and persistent, you need curiosity, not assumptions. Now let me tell you about Samuel, 75, from North Carolina. Samuel was certain amlodipine was making him weak because the fatigue began 2 weeks after the prescription started. The timing seemed obvious, but when he came in, he also had shortness of breath, lying flat and swelling that had climbed above the ankles. That was not just a nuisance side effect story anymore. That was a we need to look deeper story. Medication side effects are real, yes, but they can also overlap with signs of worsening heart problems, and that is why symptoms should never be interpreted in isolation. Timing matters, pattern matters, red flags matter. If fatigue comes with worsening breathlessness, fainting, chest pressure, or rapid weight gain, do not sit home trying to solve it like a puzzle. And here are the red flags I do not want you to ignore. If you are extremely tired and also fainting, nearly fainting, having chest pain, struggling to breathe, developing fast new swelling, or noticing a very slow pulse with symptoms, that needs prompt medical attention. If you are on metoprolol and feel weak with marked bradycardia, that matters. If you are on amlodipine and suddenly develop severe dizziness or worsening chest discomfort, that matters. The body usually whispers before it screams, but sometimes it does scream. And older adults are too often taught to tolerate symptoms they should respect. Do not do that. The goal is not to panic. The goal is to recognize when fatigue is a side effect conversation and when it is a medical evaluation conversation. So let's answer the headline question directly. If someone over 60, especially between 70 and 85, starts feeling fatigued after beginning one of these two medications, which one is more likely to be the cause? In the majority of straightforward cases, metoprolol is more likely than amlodipine to cause that classic drained, slowed, low-energy feeling. That is because its mechanism directly lowers heart rate and blunts the body's normal response to exertion. Amlodipine can absolutely cause fatigue too, but more often it does so through related effects like swelling, dizziness, low pressure in susceptible people, or that heavy leg sensation that makes movement feel harder. So if you force me to choose the more likely culprit for plain old fatigue, metoprolol usually wins that comparison. But here is the nuance that protects people from making mistakes. More likely is not the same as always. I have seen older adults feel miserable on amlodipine and much better on metoprolol. I have seen others feel like metoprolol dimmed their entire life until the dose was adjusted. I have seen fatigue vanish when the timing changed, when dehydration was corrected, when the dose was lowered, or when the real cause turned out to be something else completely. Medicine is not one size fits all, and aging makes that even more true. After 70, the body's margin for error narrows. Small shifts in pressure, pulse, fluid balance, or dose can feel enormous. That is why the right answer is personal, even when the general rule is clear. If I were to put this into one sentence you could remember tomorrow morning, it would be this. Metoprolol fatigue tends to feel like the engine is running too low. Amlodipine fatigue tends to feel like the body is carrying too much weight, too little pressure, or too much vascular heaviness. That is not a textbook sentence. That is a lived experience sentence. And for many older adults, it is the first description that actually makes sense of what they have been feeling. Because symptoms are not just symptoms. They have a personality, they have a pattern, they have a rhythm. And once you learn to hear that rhythm, you stop feeling helpless and start asking much better questions. Now let me give you the exact questions to take to your doctor because this may be the most useful part of this entire video. Do not say only, "I feel tired." Say, "I started feeling tired after this medication change." Say, "My pulse has been lower." Say, "My ankles swell by evening." Say, "I feel worse when I walk." Say, "I get lightheaded when I stand." Say, "My fatigue starts about 2 hours after I take the pill." Those details change the whole conversation. They tell the clinician whether to look at dose, timing, the need for the medicine, drug interactions, dehydration, or another cause. Vague symptoms create vague decisions. Specific symptoms create better decisions. That specificity can protect your energy and your safety at the same time. So here is the bottom line. If fatigue began after starting or increasing metoprolol or amlodipine, do not ignore it. Do not assume it is age. Do not stop the medicine on your own. Track the pattern. Check the pulse. Look for swelling. Notice whether activity feels strangely harder. Watch for dizziness. And bring that full picture to your doctor, because when you understand the signature each medication leaves behind, the confusion starts to clear, the fear starts to shrink, and the next decision becomes smarter, safer, and more personal. Share this with someone over 60 who keeps saying, "I just don't have the energy I used to." It may not be age, it may be the medication story nobody has decoded yet. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.